Declan Rice. Basmati. As of recording this video, it's not done. But if it does get done, I'm confident he can define an era at Arsenal. Here is how. 24-year-old England international Declan Rice is Arsenal's main transfer target this summer, and it's not hard to see why. Poised, strong, focused, agile and brave, the midfielder is the name on the lips of every Arsenal fan right now. Supposedly work has been going on for months now in order to sound out Rice's potential interest, and depending on who you believe, it's close. Having started out at West Ham playing mainly as a centre-back, Declan Rice has now established himself as one of the premier central midfield players in Europe, having made the switch at the beginning of the 18-19 season. Rice is someone I describe as an all-phases midfielder, with qualities that give you control and rhythm in build-up, progression and final action. He can pass, progress, break up, carry and shield. An incredible midfielder and a hard worker. Since starting in midfield against Everton on September the 16th, 2018, Rice has barely skipped a beat in there for his now beloved West Ham, missing just a handful of games in the subsequent seasons and making 245 appearances for the Hammers in all competitions, scoring 15 goals. When looking at players of Rice's calibre and weighing up such high-profile moves, we may not know where to begin when we assess it. He's a great player, but this would be a record transfer ever for Arsenal Football Club. But I think when assessing these types of deals, all we need to ask is this: what is Declan Rice's superpower? For a leading Premier League player, someone you're paying close to £100 million for, it's not negotiable whether they can trap and pass a ball at the top level, perform under pressure, work hard, have elite fitness levels, show top professionalism, and do all the things top midfielders can do, including be positionally and tactically astute. Those should come as standard at that price, and they do with Declan. When spending this type of money, what we should look for is the qualities that makes a player truly world-beating, the quality or qualities that set them apart from the rest, that put them in the top 2 or 3 in their position in the world on their day. Vinicius Jr.'s 1v1 ability, Haaland's finishing, Mbappe's pace and ability to fleece PSG. For me, Declan Rice's superpower is his defensive anticipation out of possession. This guy is elite at getting the ball back. It's that simple. At times, it's like he really does have a superpower. He's seen the game happen, turn back time, and come back for the ball. He knows where you're going, what you're about to do, and where you're about to be. Time after time after time, Rice picks the pocket of his opponent with such ease, it's almost laughable. His tackling technique is world class, using his substantial 6'1" frame to simply brush players off the ball, rarely going to ground, anticipating the bounce of the ball and shielding to evade pressure. There are very few players in world football as reliable as Rice in that regard, and he very, very rarely commits a foul. And this solves a problem for Arsenal. Last season, as seen in my previous video, one of the patterns when you look at the goals Arsenal conceded was being transitioned through. Adding one of the greatest transition controllers in world football into your team, you not only have more of the ball and negate the opposition threat, you can actually begin to take more risks up the other end too. We'll come to some of his other qualities a bit later, but Rice's superpower immediately solves a problem for Arsenal. With Rice on the pitch, we'll have more of the ball and can start looking at Man City's possession totals as a realistic aim. Our attacking players can have more touches. Our, at times, soft belly is hardened. The fact he's positionally versatile too and can adapt to different types of build-up means that price tag is starting to look understandable. Okay, Rice is good. You've seen him, I've seen him play for West Ham and England. But we're about to spend the best part of £100 million on him, maybe more. So when shopping from the top shelf, Arsenal need to ask themselves 3 questions. Is he a substantial upgrade on what we have, worth spending that much money on? Can he get us to the very top? And finally, where will he actually play? Well, I'll get to the first 2 questions in just a second, but let's deal with that last one first, as it seems to be on the mind of a lot of Arsenal fans. In short, my answer: don't worry about it. A midfield 3 is there to suit the game, and once you have a stable of top-class players, you can change role, position and personnel accordingly to fit game state and opposition. If you're facing Man City away, do you play Rice and Partey on the slant to man-mark their midfield, with an ESR to exploit the space in behind on the counter? Against Bournemouth at home, do you drop Rice into the 3 in build-up, let them block the midfield and create overloads out wide because their fullbacks are suspect? Against Leipzig away in the Champions League, do you have Rice in the 8 to snuff out counter-attacks? Rice gives us options, even at centre-back. We also forget that injuries and suspensions happen, and he won't be in the same position forever. My personal opinion is that at first he'll play a combination of minutes at left 8 and 6, and then settle into more of a lone pivot player generally, but it honestly doesn't matter. More and more I think we'll see Arteta make subtle tweaks to his team while keeping the principles of play roughly the same. As much as we can, let's focus on profile and job, not position and number. Who knows, he might develop further forward or further back. I mean, who called Xhaka's new role last summer? Let's enjoy the ride. Balance is key. By the way, if you want in-depth analysis of Declan playing against the top 6 this season, where I go into way more detail about his game with practical examples, you can check out the bonus content to this video on Patreon or by signing up to be a channel member for just £3 a month for that and loads of other benefits, including access to all of the other bonus content from previous videos. Next question. Is he worth around the £100 million mark? Sure, he's good, but our defence seemed to be the problem last year. Does spending that much of the budget on a midfielder make sense? Well, to decide if he's worth it, let's compare him to our current options. I'm using Squawka's comparison metric, looking at league performances last season. I'm trying to use as many non-possession affected stats as I possibly can, but we do have to accept that West Ham had 42% possession on average compared to Arsenal's 58%, and that simply will skew his stats on some level. For the left 8 role, I've selected what I feel are the most appropriate metrics, and we'll compare him with Xhaka. In fact, when you look at his heat map compared with Granit's, there's actually a lot of similarity to his role at West Ham, although clearly they would have different roles in and out of possession. Declan profiles very well as a left 8, with Granit really only bettering him in terms of output with goals, assists and chances created. Declan is the more influential player in the final third, and you can imagine in a team that creates and finishes more chances, Declan's output would rocket up. West Ham scored less than half the amount of goals Arsenal did last season, with 42 scored to Arsenal's 88. But despite his role at West Ham, many people fancy him as our long-term 6, and so do I, generally. So let's look at him as a 6 compared to Thomas Partey. Again, trying to select the most appropriate stats, Rice absolutely wipes the floor with him. Partey is marginally more progressive and has a slightly better record in the air, but you can imagine that might be down to how many they actually contest. Rice profiles remarkably similar to Rodri and is 2.5 years his junior. To some degree, our defensive issues last season can basically be put down to personnel. We have 2 of the best talents in world football on the right side of our defence, they just couldn't get on the pitch at the same time. I don't think spending big at the back is the answer. Controlling the game better is. So really, it doesn't matter where he plays, he'll do a job for you wherever. His control-giving capacity and duel winning is what we're after. Now, before we look at him on the grass again, there's an outstanding question. He's at the requisite level, but is he going to get us to the very, very top? Well, to some degree that's up to Declan, and to some degree that's up to us to create a good environment for his development. I have very few concerns in terms of his football, and I have almost no concerns about the character of the guy. Rice recently captained West Ham to their first trophy in 43 years, and his post-match for BT was brilliant. Light, funny, frank, honest. He shrugs off comparisons to Bobby Moore, instead focusing on thanking the fans and staff, highlighting their key role. Gary Neville describes Declan as the most switched-on footballer at his age that he's ever spoken to. Former scouting coordinator at Chelsea, Martin Taylor, says, "A lot of players who are more talented than him don't get as far as he's gone because they don't have the character and desire that he's got." Famously, Declan was released from the Chelsea academy at a young age due to concerns about his physical development. Of course, it's easy to laugh at Chelsea for making such a slip-up, but there's no guarantee he becomes the player he is today without that setback. The mark of a man is how he responds to adversity, and Declan has consistently shown us he's up to the challenge, even surviving relegation a few times with West Ham. From everything I've seen, from all the reports and things you can find online, seems like a top guy. But judge that for yourself. Watch any interview, any post or pre-match, his interactions with fellow England stars, his full-length overlap with Gary Neville, watch how he fronts up after poor results, watch his interaction with this young fan recently, just look him in the eyes, and I think you see someone humble, focused, and with key leadership qualities. The man who was entrusted to continue Mark Noble's legacy in East London, and in my view, the future England captain too. He's a family man who has a young son with his long-term partner. His dad is his agent, and I think this is a guy with his feet firmly on the ground, but with huge ambitions that Arsenal may be able to match. One of the prevailing concerns about Rice from certain corners of the internet is that he can't pass. I honestly think that comes from people who haven't watched him, or those that feel they need to have a take on the player to seem edgy. While one of the areas I'd like to see him develop is his pass selection, specifically opting to break the lines more often and with more quality, we simply can't detach him from his context in his role at West Ham and how much less of the ball his team have, and their difference in build-up structure. His passing profiles really well independently, and though he may not have the volume of passes per game yet because of his context, the quality of his passing is definitely up there with the best midfielders in the league. Declan is particularly adept at the switch to the far side. In fact, he's in the top few percentile for successful switches in Europe's top 5 leagues. Watch these fades, these inch-perfect balls out to the wide areas, and tell me that Declan Rice can't pass. With wide receivers like Saka, Jesus and Martinelli, we could see that a lot more often, and it's something Gabriel Partey and Saliba don't attempt all too often, though that could be instruction. Of course, Rice is never going to be Kevin De Bruyne on the ball in terms of cuteness and dexterity in the final third, but Kevin De Bruyne is never going to be Declan Rice off it. You need a balance in your midfield, and we already have our Kevin De Bruyne in Martin Odegaard. I can't see Rice having the most touches in an Arteta team, certainly not to begin with, and that's fine by me. And by the way, players improve, and on that, I think Rice has some growth potential in forward areas as well. On the underlap, in the same position that Xhaka sometimes finds, behind the centre-back and full-back, he can often cause teams problems due to his physicality in that area, and if his ball striking can become a little bit more consistent, he could become a serious threat. He has the intelligence and anticipation to be more of a threat from the edge of the box too, though his shooting isn't perfect. A very small concern I have about Declan is his defending wide. At times he can get dragged outside and bypassed, and because he's not as good defending the wide areas as the central areas, you can give yourself problems. I think, however, that can be corrected with structure and coaching. At West Ham, Rice is the main man, the all-action midfielder who everything flows through. At Arsenal, there'll be more structure, and you feel he might have a more manageable role. So, is Declan Rice perfect? No. But could he be perfect for Arsenal in the not too distant future and moving forward? I think so. If it does get done, I think this signing could go down in Arsenal history. I genuinely think it could be up there as an era-defining Vieira, Bergkamp type play. It shows a serious ambition from the club, as Rice answers some of our biggest questions emphatically, in a way that we haven't quite done before. He changes the age profile of our midfield, he adds more character and personality, he's a leader, he's a homegrown London boy and a developing star of England, helping to catapult Arsenal into a new era under Mikel Arteta. It also signals a new approach at Arsenal as we enter phases 4 and 5 of the project. Finally, we look like we're starting to shop from the top shelf. All players have growth potential, but we're starting to sign less and less project players and more players who are closer to the finished article. That's what will get us over the line in a title race, and it's something Arsenal haven't done for a very, very long time. It's ambition, it's progress, it's quality. Declan Rice gives you all that and more. Declan, we'll see you at the carpet. I hope.